Hey, look, Pat, don't go too far. You might be part of our service tonight. That's, okay.
Technology existed?
I don't know. I've only started seeing it pop up last semester. Probably a while.
It just seems like such a
It's such a really
obvious and genius thing.
It's been put into like orchestras and things like that. It's probably been in circulation for years there. But like, it's just so obvious that now that everyone's moving over to iPad, just click, and like some of them don't make a noise. Some of them have like looping features. Some have are backlit for anyone who's a musician on stage.
Oh, that's super
like
helpful.
A blue light, like you name it.
That is really very helpful.
They've got a lot of technology. You can pair some with like multiple iPads. Like it's
wow.
Yeah, tech has come
technology.
Quite far.
Technology. I love it. All right, Getlings, how we doing? Good. Look, there's always the potential of an evening just like this. Doesn't happen often, but every once in a while.
It's quiet.
My suggestion would be, I think we angle you down just
a little more.
Slightly. No, you're good.
True. Oh, in that way.
There.
Cool. Yep.
Okay. We'll see, and you can always adjust it if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
That's good.
We'll see.
All right. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. All right. So, Cantor, why don't we just jump right to it? We'll get started with candle blessing on page 120.
You know what I'm missing that I forgot?
What's that?
I forgot a prayer book. That might be helpful for me.
Kind of important.
Somewhat important.
Pat, can you do me a huge favor? Could you go grab a prayer book for the Cantor for me?
Yeah, just right back there. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's kind of important. So focused on the music that I completely forgot about the words.
Used to, you know.
Yeah, I'd say so.
It's also partly a sign of your increasing abilities, right? That you just
Sure.
automatically know. And also, we're grateful that we have Pat here, you know, can help us out in a pinch.
Thank you.
All right.
So what page was that again?
Page 120. Page 120. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
And we'll turn now to page 130 to begin Kabbalat Shabbat together at the very top of the page.
Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Naria, naria, letzoi yishenu, nekadma fana v'todah. Naria, naria, letzoi yishenu, bizmirot naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai.
We'll turn now to page 131, Shiru Ladonai, which is in the Hebrew just towards the top of the page.
Well, let's actually take the second paragraph
Ooh,
and
even
do
better.
a little Yismachu
You got it.
Hashamayim.
We'll follow you.
Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, V'tagel haaretz. Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, V'tagel haaretz. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, V'tagel haaretz.
All right, we'll turn now to page 132, or Zarua, which is towards the very bottom of the page.
Or Zarua la tzadik, u'yishrei lev simcha. Or Zarua la tzadik, u'yishrei lev simcha. Or Zarua la tzadik, u'yishrei lev simcha. Or yishrei lev simcha. Or Zarua la tzadik, u'yishrei lev simcha. Or yishrei lev simcha. Let's do one more. Or Zarua la tzadik, u'yishrei lev simcha. Or Zarua la tzadik,
ולישרי לב שמחה אור זרוע לצדיק ולישרי לב שמחה ולישרי לב שמחה אור זרוע לצדיק ולישרי לב שמחה ולישרי לב שמחה.
We'll turn now to page 134, Zamru Ladonai at the very top of the page.
Zamru Ladonai bechinor, bechinor vekor zimra, bechatzotzrot vekor shofar. Ariu lifnei hamelech Adonai, Yiram hayam u'melo, Tevel veyoshvei vav, Tevarot yimcha uchaf yachad, Harim yiranenu, Lifnei Adonai kiva, Lishpot haaretz, Lishpot tevel betzedek, Ve'amim b'meisharim, Yiram hayam u'melo, Tevel ve'yoshvei vav, Beharot yimcha uchaf yachad, Harim yiranenu.
We'll turn now to page 135, Romamu, which is the last Hebrew paragraph, just in the middle of the page.
Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishachavu behar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishachavu behar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu behar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu behar kodsho.
We'll turn now to L'chadodi on page 138, and we'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs. And for the last one, I guess if you're in the room, then we'll stand up and face towards the rear. Cantor, page 138.
Thank you. Actually, I'm going to do this a little bit higher, I think. Actually, let's leave it there. Fine. Yeah. Lechadoti likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Ishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem tiferet v'ritila. Lechadodi לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה מראש מכרם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורי קומי אורי, אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. בואי לשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
Please be seated. We're now on the top of page 140, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון וכינור, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון וכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון וכינור.
Who was that? That's beautiful. Which one?
That's a Nav Tehillah melody by
Oh.
Daphne Rosenberg.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll turn to the Chatzi Kaddish now on page 144, and we'll rise in body or in spirit. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba
Amen.
ve'amad yivrach yirutei ve'alich malchutei v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael Bagala, bagala, uvizman kariv, veimeru, amen. Yeheshmei Rabba mevarach, le'alam li'al me'al maya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitba'ar, v'yitramam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei dekudsha, berichu, Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imeru. Amen. Baruch Hu is on page 146. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam vaed. Please be seated. We're now on page 149. We'll read together in English at the very top of the page. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבי.
Amen. Let's read together now in the bottom of page 150. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praised to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel.
כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, והם נגע יומם ולילה, באהבתך. אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please join us on page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam ve'shivtecha b'veitecha u'lechtecha b'derech ושוכבך ובקומך, ושרתם לאות על והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובישעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, Liot lachem Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Adonai Elohechem Emet. We'll turn now to page 157. We'll read together in English at the top of the page. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we turn to page 158, Mi Chamocha at the very top of the page.
Ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh Norat tehilot osef eleh Norat tehilot osef eleh Malchutecha ra'u v'anecha Okei hayam nifnei Moshe u'Miriam Ze eliyanu ve'amru Ze eliyanu ve'amru Yaakov ugealo miyad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
We'll turn now to Hashkivenu on the top of page 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim Ushmor tzeiteinu Uvoeinu L'chaim u'shalom Me'ata ve'ad olam Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim.
Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people, Israel, and over Yerushalayim. As we turn to page 162, Vishamru at the very top of the page.
V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dorotam berit olam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam Shabbat vayinafash.
Now rise in body or spirit as we begin the Amidah together on page 164. As always, from that point, we'll continue silently, and please go at your own pace. And if at the end you are still standing, you may be seated. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
Say shalom bimroma, Uya say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru ve'imeru amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu, Al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu, Al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu, Al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu, Al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu, Al kol Yisrael.
We'll turn now to page 371 as we prepare to offer our Mishaberach, our healing prayer for this evening. Tonight in our community, we're thinking of Bensi Tepper, Allison Luckman, Malka Bat Chaya Sura, Michael Klinghofer, Aimee Cass, Warren Cass, Rivka Bat Rachel, Leah Bat Naomi, Gedalia Ben Sylvia, Lorraine Danis, David Dowling, Sivya Devora Bat Francis, Muriel Hirsch, Michelle Sawicki, Francis Kirschman, Shelley Newmark, Diane Axelrod, Gabriella Rose Spicer, Barbara Kushner, David Kyle Klopman, Lorena Davis, Michoel Ben Chananya, Devorah Batsima, Rebecca Snyder, Jeffrey Miller, Shelley Lineman, Deborah Block Kroll, Sylvia Orn, Stanley Rappaport, Karen Layton, Debbie Bookvar, Carol Javna, Lori Nisanoff, Roberta Kyle, Miriam Batchaya, Dina Batchana, Mindy Cantor, Rebecca Rubin. In addition to the names that we just read aloud, we'll of course invite those watching at home to share the names of your loved ones either in the chat on the Zoom or just out loud to your space. And Cantor, any additional names for you? Guys, anybody want to add to our healing prayer for this weekend? Joseph, go ahead. Sure. Pat, you got anybody? We'll join together now with the Cantor on page 371, just in the middle of the page. Thank you, Cantor. Take a little bit of a break. Just, yep.
I'm learning.
I know. I'm impressed. So we're all about here at the temple, or the church, or the temple, whatever we are. We're all about the learning. Very much. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So I'll be honest with you. I originally, in my mind, I was planning to talk to you tonight about my trip to the city to see the Delhi exhibit this week, which is a conversation worth having, and I think I will do that at some point or another in the future, because it was a lot of fun, and we learned a lot about delis that we may not have known before. But instead tonight I'm going to talk actually about something that is sad for me, but also, more about a really remarkable person. So earlier this week, a couple days ago actually, a very dear family friend of ours passed away. And he lived a remarkable, long, incredible life, and was not well in the more recent last few years. So it certainly is one that's of course sad, and at the same time, you get to this point in life and you celebrate more than you are sad. But it's equal parts of it. But there is a very strong and very good reason why we don't eulogize on Shabbat. So I'm not going to eulogize our friend. But I will contextualize him a little bit as to who he was, and more importantly, tell you about an organization that he founded in the 1970s, which I suspect is an organization that fewer and fewer people know about, and that I suspect, unfortunately, over time, may not even exist once he's passed on. But it's important to me. Its legacy itself as the organization is important, but its values, I think, are the more important conversation, even beyond the work that the organization itself did. So the person who I'm speaking of was our dear friend. His name was Misha Avramov, and Misha was born in Bulgaria prior to World War II, prior to the Holocaust. And while most people would probably, and I think I would count myself in the same situation, lump Bulgaria in because of where it is to every other part of that area, the Balkans area of the world, in which the Jewish population that was living there prior to the start of the Holocaust was basically non-existent after the Holocaust, and that was because everyone basically was deported and or killed. In the case of the Jews of Bulgaria, something interesting happened, and while Bulgaria became a part of the growing fascist Germany empire that was building in Europe, they, at the last minute, refused to deport the Jews that were living within Bulgaria's natural border. There's some complications around Jews that were living in borderlands, but in terms of the actual state of the country itself, they refused in the end to deport their Jews, and so the vast majority of Bulgarian Jewry actually survived. It didn't survive in Bulgaria. They were dispersed as Misha was, and a significant portion of them, as Misha and his family did, ended up actually in the land of Israel prior to and during the years of the founding of the state itself. And through a whole series of things, Misha ended up in the States and eventually was deeply involved in Jewish education in a lot of ways, primarily in New York City and also on Long Island. So it's very possible some members of our community may have interacted with him at one point or the other just based on the fact that he was in a lot of places. But over his years, he developed a particular connection to the Jewish community of the Lower East Side. And the Jewish community of the Lower East Side, in particular, in the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, it continues to exist today, the organization, but primarily its origins are in a point in history that, for people like myself who were born in 81, I don't really have a good frame for, but I've since learned, I think Bob and Joe, you know what the city was like in the 70s in general, wasn't exactly, always the best place to be. And the Lower East Side, well, we tend to have a sort of, a cinema view of what that time was like in our mind. It was a hard existence, and in particular, the Jews that did not move out of the Lower East Side when most eventually made enough money and fled to the suburbs and to other parts of the city, the ones that remained behind became, over time, largely the ones who were forgotten, who became destitute, who became ill, and this was compounded by an immigration of Jews who were fleeing the former Soviet Union, who also basically found their way to America, to New York City, to the Lower East Side, were given federal housing, and basically then were left, to fend for themselves. And as you can imagine, as a growing population of elderly people, start to become older, start to become more infirmed and more isolated, and in many cases have gone through tremendous traumas and don't have the access to social health care that would help them to develop, an independent lifestyle or even a successful lifestyle. And he saw this suffering that was going on, and he decided that he was going to do something about it. He couldn't, in Misha's words, he often talked about the fact that, it wasn't revolutionary what he did, but it was evolutionary. He tried to take a situation that he knew was bad and getting worse, and he did the best that he could to try to remedy that, and he did it in some very unusual kinds of ways. And he emphasized what I would say are unusual values, but should be usual values, especially in the world of what we would call social justice work, social action work. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So the first thing is the name of the organization itself was called Project Ezra. And being that you're the only person in the room to really ask at the moment, Kevin, I would assume that Project Ezra is not something that you would be familiar with. My guess is it has never come up at HUC, even though HUC is in fairly close proximity to the Lower East Side. So again, not entirely surprising, partially because, small organization. But one of the things that Misha decided to do, which actually ended up being something of a challenge for him in his time at Project Ezra in the years in running it, is that he refused to seek additional government aid to support the organization. Right? As a nonprofit organization, there's lots of grants out there that the state governments, the federal government will offer in support of. And you know what his logic was? You know what his reason was? Because he knew that he was able to, because of his connections, he was able to fundraise directly from a growing, affluent, let's say upper middle class Jewish community that was living in relative comfort. And he knew that he could go to them for money to support his organization. But he knew that there were many other organizations that are pulling from the same pot, right, the same government pot, who don't have that kind of access. They can't do their own kind of fundraising. And so he felt that it was inappropriate for them to take advantage of this opportunity when others who would have needed it more couldn't get it. So even though he started an organization whose whole goal was to help other people without anything, he was still thinking on a meta level about the even bigger issues of poverty, the issues of the realities of older life and lack of support. He was always sort of cognizant of that sort of that even as important as his work was part of a larger whole. And if he could get the job done using the resources that he had, he wasn't going to take advantage of something else that could benefit other people who didn't have those same advantages that he saw in his world. So that was one really remarkable thing about it. The second one, which I think I'm increasingly feeling is the most important part of it, is the emphasis on dignity. So what does that mean? I'm sure all of us in the room here, we've had the experience of volunteering, right, of serving communities of people perhaps that are less fortunate than we are. And one of the challenges of that work is that oftentimes there is a utilitarian view of it, right? You have X number of mouths to feed, you have X pounds of food, right? You need to figure out how to get that food into those mouths, and that's the only thing that ultimately matters. But the other component of feeding the hungry and clothing the naked and taking care of the elderly and the infirmed is that you have an equal obligation to preserve their dignity. That you have to, according to Jewish law, you have to actually go out of your way, make your job harder if it means a question of preserving a person's dignity or not. So that comes up all the time, and actually in his acceptance speech, he received what's called the Covenant Award in 1995, which is really the highest award a Jewish educator can receive. And in his speech, he's speaking to a room full of people who are part of the Jewish Federation network, who probably donated millions of dollars to it. And the Jewish Federation is known for, especially at certain times of the year, Passover, Rosh Hashanah, giving out food boxes to the poor. And he noted that in many of those cases, the people who are coming for that aid have to demonstrate that they are in need. They have to bring paperwork with them, show W-2 forms, show SSI forms. In other words, go through the extra step rather than assuming that a person who shows up at a soup kitchen is really in need, making them go that extra step to demonstrate the need. And what Misha felt was that was an insult to a person's dignity. Okay, maybe there's going to be a few people who actually have the means and they show up and they take a little bit more than they should. But that in itself is not a good enough reason to make a person who is already in a tough spot have to grovel, right? Or have to identify themselves in a way that is less than dignified. So the fact that, again, he did this work, which itself was incredibly hard on its own, but made it harder for himself and the other people that supported the organization because there was a value set underneath it. And there are many, many, many organizations in this great country, many 501c3s, many who do great work, have great intention, but in the end become what many of us become in this work of trying to fix the world is we focus again on a sort of utilitarian outcome, understandably so. Okay, when you're in the business of saving people's lives, a lot of times you don't have the luxury of being able to consider whether everything that you're doing is also preserving that person's dignity. But Misha basically attached this to his Jewish identity and to his theology, right? He believed, as Jews are meant to believe, that human beings are created in the image of God. And he said that that's not just lip service, that's not just a statement. If you believe that, then you have to act in that way at all times, which means the person that you may walk over on the street is deserving of dignity as you are, right? Or as your family is, or as the people who look like you or live in your neighborhood are. And so, he sort of noted in his lifetime that he was called basically crazy by lots of people. He was called even worse names by lots of people, even people that loved him, because they felt like he was living in some kind of fantasy world in which, he was operating almost always in a sort of deficit scenario in which he was giving away more than he really had the ability to give, and yet somehow or another kept making it happen. Another example of this was that in the times in which Project Ezra was running, there was basically he worked with a local rabbi who he described as his polar opposite. He said he was he was to the right of him, and he said, quite frankly, this rabbi was to the right of Genghis Khan in most of his political views, and Misha was not of that particular background. But what they worked out was a system where anybody in the neighborhood, right, any Jewish person in the neighborhood, who was in need would either whether the rabbi was walking down the street or they'd come to him in his office, and he would write a little note down on a card and say, take this card to the store, take it to the butcher, take it to the supermarket, you give them this card and they'll take care of you. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened for years, right? Hundreds of people all year long would go to the rabbi, they'd get this little card, they'd go to the butcher, they'd come home with food. So who paid that bill? Project Ezra. At the end of every month would go to each butcher, each supermarket, and they would pay every single bill. So that meant that basically each of these people was able to, under the absolute confidence of speaking to a rabbi only, handing over just a little card, nothing, to a storekeeper who could make all of the arrangements without having to have any need to talk about whether a person was poor, how much money they had, or how much money they didn't have, or anything of the sort. And those people were taken care of, and they were taken care of for decades and decades. And my understanding is that Project Ezra was absorbed into a larger organization that is more focused on sort of Holocaust survivors in particular, of which many of Project Ezra's people on the Lower East Side were Holocaust survivors as well. But, its essence still remains. And I don't know whether in the end, again, the organization will survive much longer in its own right. I hope it does very much. But I'll leave with just one last little tidbit that I didn't even know. I asked my dad on the phone just a while ago. The name Project Ezra. Ezra is a very common Jewish name. It's one of the great, well-known of our prophets, primarily responsible for helping the Jews to come back to the land of Israel and rebuild the temple after the first destruction. I just automatically assumed it was named either after that Ezra or some other very famous Ezra. But we'll test the Cantor's Hebrew knowledge here. If we're thinking about Ezra just as a word, do we know what its root is? Very good, okay? Ezra means to help, right? To basically, in many ways, to really make the difference in the end when somebody is desperately in need. That's the word that we would tend to use. So actually, the whole organization's structure, its name, was designed to make people think that it was about a person or about some big, organization or something like that, so that when a person said, I'm going to Project Ezra, nobody knew that it was an aid organization, didn't know necessarily that it was, or it didn't have the obvious connotation that that's what it was. Again, a little thing, little subtle thing, but a thing that was designed from the beginning solely for the purpose of maintaining the dignity and the self-respect of the people being served. So the takeaway from this, aside from just wanting to share this remarkable person's life, and as I said, Misha himself was a character and deserving of his own, remembrance and all the things that he did. But it's not really to eulogize him tonight on Shabbat. But to think about an organization like this that stands out in my mind as really being very different than a lot of others. A lot of others that are doing really great work with great intentions. But sometimes you can do almost everything right and still be missing a really important piece. And that's really, again, the human component. Okay, that when we're helping each other, when we're helping the people who need our help the most, that we need to be very thoughtful about how we do it and very cognizant of how we approach that work so that we treat each person that we engage with, especially the people who are needing our help and our assistance and our support, that we go above and beyond to make sure that their dignity is as important to us as any other aspect of our help or our support. So I dedicate this learning to Misha's memory. And for anybody who's interested in Project Ezra, there is a website. There's still information up there. Could certainly, I'm sure, find out more for you. But I think, if you're involved in other organizations of any sort, I think you can, just as importantly, call them up and ask them, how do they approach this question of the dignity of those that they serve and that they help? How do they go about that business of making sure that people are not just saved, but lifted up? And if you don't get a sufficient answer, perhaps you push the organization to think a little bit more deeply about that, to try to find a few places in which they can improve. And I think I'll be asking the same question of myself and of our temple community in the work that we do, and trying to see if there are places in which we can improve that kind of work and to be more oriented towards the needs of those that we serve. So with that, I wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. Welcome the Cantor back up to our bima here, and we'll turn in our prayer books to page 586 at the very bottom of the page. Page 586, Aleinu L'Shamech. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula le'yotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo samach elkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamunam, v'anachnu kor'im u'mishtachamim u'modim, Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Page 591. V'nehemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz. Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad. Ushemo echad. Now invite mourners and those observing yard sites to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated at this time. We'll begin by thinking of those who've passed in our community in recent months. Martin Blake, Arlene Eber, Chaim Bear Greenwald, Sandy Greenwald, Jane Beard Cass, Gertrude Katz, Buddy Kossoff, Helene Krotman, Emmanuel Kiprios, David Lieberman, Sandra Luongo, Norma Polsek, Marvin Schreier, Anita Sheldon, Alan Silver, Sandy Slip, Larry Wartor, Rita Weitzman, Matthew Adam Zimmerman, and Yael Zerdar. We also mark the yard sites that occurred during the last week for Gladys Abraham, York R.K., George Berger, Ethel Fagenbaum, Alice Grossman, Mildred Heimovitz, Olive Hennefield, James Hodes, George Katz, Hannah Klein, Herman Klein, Joseph Lauder, Isabel Lewontin, Louis Lehner, Joel Margaretin, Fanny Meyer, Mark Mitchum, Ruben Mondensheim, Michelle Neustadter, Samuel Okun, Diane Oliphant, Theodore Pearl, Millie Peskowitz, Louis Sigmund Rosenthal, Francis Solosky Suskin, Sylvia Swerdlick, Cindy Robin Taylor, Sonia Weiss, Adrian Wool, and Mary Ann Bennett. In addition, we'll invite those that are remembering loved ones at home to add the names again, either out loud or just to hold them in your hearts. And of course, to invite those in our room with us. Anybody remembering anybody tonight? All right. And we'll join together with the Kaddish on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divra chirutei ve'amlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyamechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kariv ve'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'le'almei almaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitromam ve'yitnaseh ve'yithadar ve'yit'aleh ve'yithalal shemei dekudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Okay. Please be seated, and wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. Few important announcements for us. A few things. First is, hopefully you saw it. If you missed our virtual building renovation program that we had last week, there is a video of that event that is in this week's e-blast, so you can watch it on YouTube. It was a lot of fun and a lot of progress. And this week, I know this actually because I have a friend who works for the Suffolk County Water Authority, and I believe they successfully attached the water to the building. So whether you know, the things you don't really think about until you think about, this is about as important as they come. And from what I've been told, it wasn't going to be for weeks later. So, credit to the Suffolk County Water Authority for coming to our aid and, slowly but surely. Next, I think gas. Gas is important also. Electricity also somewhat important, but we'll get to those things. But walls are going up, all sorts of great stuff. So, again, if you missed the program and you'd like to catch up on things, you're welcome to watch that. Also, just to say, it was a wonderful trip to the city this week for the Delhi exhibit again, which I think I'll hold back. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more next week. But a lot of fun. But we have some other stuff coming up this week, which I'd like to highlight. Sunday on 2 o'clock on this Sunday, the Rosh Chodesh group will be meeting as a hybrid program, so you can join in person or online. Also, a reminder, this Wednesday, January 25th at 7 o'clock, we have the virtual tour at the Jewish Museum and their exhibit on New York 1962 to 1964. And then on Thursday evening, we have our virtual program with the ADL, which I believe is a 7 o'clock program. So you can join us again online for that as well. Please do remember to register ahead of time. Also to note, Ruth Joseph's wonderful book group will be meeting on Sunday, January 29th at 11 o'clock on Zoom. You can call the office for more details on how to join Ruth and this wonderful group. And also a reminder, speaking of helping, on Sunday, January 29th at Christ Church just down the street will be our next Maureen's Haven shelter, in which we, of course, are participating. And we are always looking for signups to help us in volunteering and bringing food and setup. So please do check for the e-blast and look for where the social justice section is, and there's more information there as well. We, of course, invite you to join us for Shabbat services tomorrow morning here at the Old Whalers Church at 9:30. You're welcome to join Cantor Kevin and myself back in the chapel. So again, entrance on the side of the building, or you can watch us online on Zoom, our website, YouTube, or Facebook. And also to note, coming up this week, Monday, Nina Mitzvah will be meeting at 11:30, Hebrew School at 3 o'clock, and we will have our family B'nai Mitzvah class and program at 5 o'clock that evening, as well as the social justice Zoom meeting at 5 o'clock as well. So that really closes out through the month of January, and some fun stuff coming up for the month of February. And Cantor, any things that you'd like to add about perhaps?
Just that next week, I believe it's Thursday, I'll have to double check that date, is the Hebrew Yard Site of Debbie Friedman. And so in honor of that, we'll be doing some extra melodies throughout the service that will be in honor of her memory and her legacy.
Well, that should be very nice. Appreciate that very much. And Cantor, so do you have a closing song? Not to put you on the spot again this week, but we'll
It's
see
all
what you
good.
came up
I
with.
do. I think I left my guitar pick somewhere, but that's fine. I can play without it. Since you test my Hebrew, it's not time to do it right back.
Probably get a worse answer.
Yeah, but we'll see. He's dam newt. It's a great word. It's a big one.
He's done.
He's dam newt. Anyone? Any idea?
Not a clue.
I believe it's opportunity is our big one. So
no, that actually makes sense.
This piece has a little part in the bridge essentially that has Shinatan lanu hizdamnut litakein et haolam. So who has given us the opportunity to mend or to fix the world, litakein et haolam.
I like that.
And so it is litakein, aka the Nana song. Na 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 na. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. Here comes that Hebrew. Shenatan lanu hizdamnut litakein et haolam. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. Last time. Shenatan lanu hizdamnut litakein et haolam. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na na na
na na na na na na.
That was the big hit when I was interning in Los Angeles. That
Yeah.
the kids loved that song. That was a big.
It's a good one.
That's a
and
good
it's got
one.
a good message.
He's damnut, man. Okay, good. And we're learning Hebrew tonight, which
exactly.
is good. You know,
A little bit of everything.
very good. Okay, we'll join together for Kiddush on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon enchilanu zikaron lemase v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת, מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
Amen. Chaim.
I just feel bad we don't have anything for you. I feel like, we should get you a cup of your own someday.
At some point.
Some point. We'll work up there. And our motzi, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Good Shabbos, Cantor.
Shabbat Shalom.
9:30 tomorrow. Maybe we'll see you. Maybe we won't. Who knows?
Find out.
We'll find out. In the meanwhile, we'll turn our microphones on. All right. Good Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.